everybody, my name is Ann Théato and welcome to the Psychic Matters podcast, episode number 16. If you're someone who feels your spiritual path keeps being interrupted due to you having to deal with life's challenges instead, you are not alone. Dublin-based spiritual medium and psychic Susan Hughes spent quite some time caring for her elderly mother, which forced her to examine in depth her strict upbringing and helped her to strip back the layers of fear and guilt placed upon her young shoulders. In this episode, Susan discusses how difficult it can be at times to keep following your spiritual path when life challenges get in the way, or when people who are meant to be the closest to you tell you that you're not enough, or that because you feel, see, hear, or know of spirit people, that there is something wrong with you. Susan talks with great passion about how she finally came to terms with her innate psychic and mediumship abilities, and how she places great faith in a spirit world that assists her on a daily basis. I'm here today with spiritual medium and psychic Susan Hughes. Susan, welcome to Psychic Matters.
Hi, Anne. Thanks ever so much for inviting me to have a chat with you.
Oh gosh, it's a pleasure, and I can't wait to hear all about your work and what you do. So, handing over to you, Susan. Tell everyone where you live, who you are, and what you're about.
Okay, well, I am a Susan Hughes, and I live in Dublin, Ireland, and I am born and bred. I haven't moved, although I like to travel around and see things. I do like to come home. Just to give a little bit of information of how my spiritual side manifested and how I learned I was a psychic and a medium. I am from a Catholic family of 7 children, and many people will know that religions and Catholicism in particular a lot of it is based on fear. So I grew up in quite a fearful, constricted, controlled childhood where you found it difficult to express yourself wholly and fully. And I was the 6th of 7 children, so I'm an Irish twin. Many people in the world will know about them. So I'm sure my mum was quite fed up having children. Life was a bit different for me as a child. Moving on from there, I knew I was different. I kept having these funny experiences, but I was always a bit envious of those mediums who said, oh, I saw my granddad, or I saw my grandmother. I was 2 and I was 4. I never saw that. That never happened. So I was kind of going, oh, well, maybe I'm not a medium because I didn't experience that, although I did experience other things. So moving on then to my late teens, I was 18 and found myself pregnant, which you can imagine in Ireland. In those days, young women who were pregnant and not married were called unmarried mothers, whereas today they're single parents, which is a much nicer adjective to use. I was really struggling with trying to work out, what am I doing on this earth? There needs to be more to this life to make it easier to live through, if there was a reason for it. And I actually went to my local church to sit. There was nobody there, so I went to sit and try and receive a faith or an understanding or something, which I don't know if I did receive. But from that point, I started researching. I was a prolific reader, so I went to the library and I started taking out books because I needed to know and understand, how do I know these things that seem so commonplace or commonsensical to me and other people don't? So I needed to put it in a box, even though it shouldn't be tightly closed, that box. So I was fascinated these books, psychology, and then I started looking into near-death experiences, and then I got a book about psychism, and I actually taught myself using these books, or this particular book, to do psychic readings using playing cards. which were aplenty in our house. Being Irish, you'd spend a lot of time playing cards because the weather doesn't permit outside. And so I got a bit of a fright because things that I were seeing were actually happening. So I got a bit of a fright and I left it to the side. Now, that would have been my early 20s then. So I got married, had a couple of more children, delightfully so. And then in my 30s, the research really started off again. And I actually did a year's study in psychology because I'm still trying to understand people. Why do they do that when they should know this? That kind of thing. And I also, as I was working as a psychic, I really began to understand that I could assist this person to assist themselves to heal or progress, but I could also do a lot of damage if I were to say the incorrect thing. So I did also a year study in counseling. So I had that, and I didn't do any more because I couldn't afford it because it's very expensive to train. So I found an online site called Delphi, which Craig Hamilton Parker had. And on there, I discovered I was a medium. And I can tell you, the first time I experienced the energy of a guide, I was terrified because I hadn't a clue what that was about. And I actually shut the computer down. It just meant I can't handle that. But I went further in questioning it. And so obviously they don't frighten me now. It's the power of the energy. So I began to go to England to Violet Kipling and Minister Doris Smith to do training. I did that twice a year. Now, at that point, I didn't know about the SNU or spiritualists. I just knew I needed to find out more about what is going on. I needed to find out the truth of it. So I would be a truth seeker. And you would know, Anne, the way I would, and many people who have the sensitivities, we know when people are not telling the truth. But yes, we learn as we mature to not be as blatant and pointing the finger, because when you're pointing the finger out, there's four pointing back, that kind of way.
Yes.
So I went and I did all these studies, and I was very lucky because Vi and Doris invited fabulous tutors to teach. And it was there at one of these events, and I think it was in Middlesbrough. We went for a break, and I wasn't going to go back. I was staying in a little place across the way. I wasn't going to go back for the afternoon session. I was tired, but I went, I better go back. Vi'll kill me. So I went back, and the room was all set up. There was an empty chair at the front. There was 3 other people sitting there, and it was a spiritual naming service. And I was one of the chosen students to get it done. Now, the person who gave me my spiritual name was Minister Eric Hatton. Now, I didn't know him other than this is a really nice man. He's a beautiful man, and his wife Heather was there that weekend also. Beautiful people. Now, since after that, I discovered he had been president of the SNU and he was big, high up, but he was an inspiration to me, because this was a genuine person. On this online site, Delphi, it's worldwide, obviously, as the web is open to everywhere. And I became a teacher on that site eventually. I realized now, looking forward all these years, that I got a great grounding in spiritualism. And then moving forward, I am a CSNU in speaking and demonstrating, and I am in process of getting my official SNU teacher training badge. So in between all of that, life has to go on. And the struggles I had with having this faith and this knowing and this understanding about what can be and things can be better, it was rather difficult at times. And people can be plain nasty, Anne, can't they? They can be just plain nasty. And it doesn't matter if they're spiritualists or non-spiritualists. If people haven't discovered themselves and how to deal with themselves, they're going to try and pull other people down. Now, it is said in Ireland, we're a country of begrudgery. I don't like that really, because I think we're great. But I do know some people don't like people going up the ladder, you know, that kind of way, instead of us all encouraging each other. So at one point, I spoke with Violet online, and I left the move. I left spiritualism, I left mediumship and psych. And I said, I was so naive that I thought if you were a spiritualist, you who truly were living through your spirit self, you truly were goodness and light, even though life was going to go on. But it turned out it wasn't true. So my naivety was, got a bit of a kick up the bum. However, I did go back to it, thankfully. Now, during this time, I had very little support emotionally or financially around me to do all of these things because everything I learned, I had 1,000 more things to learn. And it still happens, everything I learn leads to other things that you need to learn.
That's very true. You go down a rabbit hole and then you go down another little line of inquiry and another line of inquiry.
Eye-Opening Moments podcast are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
That's totally it. I just don't understand people who think they know it all, because nobody can know it all. There's so much to know, and that's not just within spiritualism, it's within life itself.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Let me pause you for a moment, because
Sure.
I know that there's lots to come, and that's very exciting, but I'd like to go back, if I may. You talk about when you were young that you never saw dead people like other people have seen. You get an indication that they're a medium by seeing, I don't know, shadows or figures when they're little. So you didn't do that, but you did say you experienced other things. Can you enlighten us what those other things might have been?
Sure. So it was my understanding. It's like I just knew things. And I remember I'm a shy child, a quiet child, and yet I was called cheeky because I used to say things that I suppose shouldn't be said because they were truthful and honest. No, it wasn't. They weren't nasty. But I also remember having kind of out of body experiences, although I just felt I was in a different world. And one particular one, and I was standing on the stairs in my childhood home, and I felt like I had traveled I was tingling, and it was like I was in a bubble of really powerful energy. Now, I wouldn't have described that as a child, but as an adult, I'm able to understand it. I like people who are left of centre, slightly different. So I was left of centre.
Yeah.
I just couldn't fit into anything. I couldn't fit into any group, which is interesting because I actually was out yesterday evening with 4 childhood friends who are not in any way spiritual. Well, that's a terrible thing to say. They are spiritual beings, but they're not spiritualists or psychics or mediums. It's wonderful to be accepted, you see. I found it difficult to be accepted in circles. And it was because I suppose I spoke differently. Even though I didn't understand, I was speaking differently. I was just speaking from the point of view of truth.
Yes.
And my understanding of what that is. And interesting, many years later, at 16, you're going to Debs and you're going to parties and things like that. And I wasn't invited to, this is not a sob story, by the way, just so you know, I wasn't invited. And many years later, I asked one of the blokes that we used to hang out with, I said, why was that? And he says, we just didn't know what to do with you.
What does he mean by that?
Well, this is it, because I was too different. to
Right.
fit into the expectations of how people were supposed to be. Now, I didn't understand that. I really didn't. I thought I was just me. Well, I know I was just me, actually. So I struggled with this, and I've struggled with it all my life. And even within this spiritual movement, I'm still not quite fitting in, do you see? Even though I fit in enough, but I am now of the age where I can accept myself and say, well, I'm going to do this anyway.
Yes.
When my father passed, that was devastating to me, absolutely devastating to me, because this was the one person that I knew loved me unconditionally, even though there were conditions because he's an Irish Catholic. So we have to understand that also. This was the only person in the whole world who loved me totally, and he had left this earth. We nursed him at home because he was ill, and I was delighted to be able to assist him in his transition because he was so afraid of crossing over, Anne, so afraid. And I have no fear of crossing over. I don't want to do it yet, but I've no fear because I can't wait to find out the answers to all these questions
I'm
that I
with
have.
you. I can't
Yeah.
wait to go. I'm really
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah, and I'd say, well, why was that? And tell me more. And this, I don't know if I'd be
Yeah.
jumping back. Yeah, I don't know. Spiritualism doesn't really recognize second lives and third lives, but anyway, that's another conversation, isn't
That's
it?
spiritualism, the religion,
Yeah.
not a spiritual life.
Yes.
You're talking about your father's fear
Yeah.
of passing, but how
Yeah.
was that manifesting itself?
Well, he was afraid of leaving mum on her own. He was afraid of what he may or may not meet. Now, this is a man who passed. He actually said to me, I have no regrets and I have no enemies. So whether or not he had enemies, he didn't see them as enemies. So I thought that was lovely. But I had a dream about 2 weeks before Dad passed, and about these ladies preparing a bed in spirit world for my dad. Now, my dad's mother passed when he was 13 or 14, and he had had a very difficult childhood from that. So I have no clue what my grandmother looked like. But and we had no idea of father's family, very little, because it was a Protestant Catholic mix. So people were ostracized. Same thing happened on my mother's side as well, Catholic and Protestant. So don't speak to the family and don't hear about them. So the fact that my granddad was British and my grandmother was Irish had a huge issue as well. So we have no connection with grandmother's side of the family. But I was speaking with my dad the next day and I said, Dad, I saw these three ladies, and one was, if I remember correctly, one was Annie, which was a sister. And the other was a lady called Molly, who I had no clue. And the other lady I felt was my grandmother, and I actually thought I looked like her. So I went, oh. So I spoke to Dad about this, and he said, oh, that's my Auntie Molly. And I went, oh, great. And I said, this other lady who I think is your mum, and they're ready for you, Dad. And it gave him some peace. And so he passed 2 weeks later. Now, one thing that he said to me, now, Susan, will you look after your mum? And I said, you know what, Dad, if you weren't dying, I'd kill you, because that's a challenge. That's a challenge. This Irish woman who was so used to everyone looking after her. But I did, because I love my mum. She has passed. She passed April 25th this year.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? She was a great age. We called her the Elder Perry because that was her maiden name. And she was 88. And
Okay.
the last 6 months of her life were very difficult, really difficult. So I'm happy for her to be at peace. And can I also say, she was in a nursing home. She had been transferred from the hospital. She'd been in and out of the hospital. So we eventually got her into a nursing home. And the next day, the lockdown happened. So anyway. But the night she passed, we were up there, and she had not a wrinkle on her face. And she looked so peaceful. And I said, that's what death needs to look like. That's what death, the leaving of the body, leave it in in a condition that it's used up, but beautiful.
Yes.
And then to transition. So I was happy for her. But I missed my father. I still do, awfully, terribly, terribly, terribly. And I still chat with him. And I know that he comes around me a lot because I can feel him and sense him. And Mum, then I looked after, these last 7 years, I became her official carer, which was difficult because she was a difficult woman.
Yes, mothers
You
can be
know,
difficult.
yeah, she was a difficult woman. And even though we got lovely when she passed, oh, I remember, and she was lovely, and she's this. And I said, are we talking about the same woman? But she was lovely in that way. So, but so during all these times, I am trying to maintain my studies, my faith, my understanding, where am I to go with my mediumship, what am I to do, and healing. Everyone kept saying, oh, you're a healer. And I said, well, everybody's a healer. It's what fashion or what method or modality they wish to, put that out. So I chose to use, I'm quite good with words most of the time. Sometimes I get tongue-tied. But when I'm in that space, in that energy space, and I love the psychic part of that soul connection with another, when the two souls can connect and reach that understanding. So I decided to use words and as inspirational spaces for people and spaces where they can have an understanding of how to access that which needs to be healed, if indeed there is anything which needs to be healed. So I get a lot of joy from that, from seeing people being able to stand on their own 2 feet and have hope. Because if you don't have hope, you have very little. That's my opinion. You may live your life, but without hope, it's difficult. Whatever about having faith, I have a strong faith in spirit and in the continuing of life. I have a very strong faith in that. And when it comes to having faith in myself, I still struggle with that. Am I doing the right thing? Is this okay? And, do I need to learn more? That person over there knows more than me. I ought to learn about that as well. But we can't all be the same. If we all had the same learnings, life would be very boring. There'd be no healthy discussions.
Yeah, well, exactly. And everybody's got different talents and different skills that they bring, especially to the field of spirituality, I think, because it's so large. Susan, your mother and your relationship with your mum, how did she feel as a strong Roman Catholic woman? What did she feel about you being a psychic medium?
Well, I shall say that she didn't really pay me much attention now. She didn't really pay me much attention once I behaved myself and did what she said. So it was, there was no interest,
But did she, I'm asking this for 2 reasons. I have an Irish mother, as you know, we had a little chit chat before the podcast began. And she's a very strong Roman Catholic and she doesn't want anything to do with this. She won't even let me mention psychic or spiritualism. She just won't have it. And there must be other people within other religions that listen to this podcast who have possibly a similar thing. And I'm just wondering so I have those questions myself, or I have had them. I've had to work through them. Am I doing the right thing? Should I be following this path? Is it wrong? I've sorted it out for myself now. And as you can see, I'm merrily flying down the path. Happy as Larry. But how about you?
I found it difficult, all right, to maintain that faith and belief when people around were saying, you're mad, you're crazy. I'd say, but there's the more. You need to look at the more. Mother was difficult, I will say. So, of course, many of us will have tarot cards and such like, and she wouldn't have them in the house. That kind. I won't have them in the house. And I don't feel it was mentioned that it was evil, but it was bad luck. So there was lots of superstitions around that. But interestingly, Anne, my mum had dementia. Well, that's not the interesting thing, but my mum had dementia. And as she moved further into that illness, because I would maybe doing some online work or, and I'd be throwing a few cards out and she's saying, oh, they're really interesting. What are they about? Are you getting work? Or that's really nice. So as she moved more into her dementia, she became more aware of the ability that I had been training and still I'm training for. And I wonder, and I feel though, with the wonderment, that as people move into Alzheimer's and dementia, it is said that they become closer to the spirit world. So I wonder, was her understanding of the afterlife really coming to the fore because she was half in and half out? So she became really interested in
that's interesting
what
how
I
she
would
softened.
do. Absolutely. And she also softened towards me as well.
Right.
And to the point that she was able to say, I really appreciate you and I really love you.
Wow.
So I thought, how wonderful. And I appreciate that. Because to have those questions after she passes would be very difficult. And I'm not left with those questions. Now, I have to say she could be a right one, and she was a right one, and it was difficult dancing around her and her needs.
Yes.
But when you see that the truth of her, again, there's that word truth of her, just emanating from her in those moments. I thought that was very beautiful. So I am grateful for that. I am very grateful for that.
Yeah, I bet you are. And you're very lucky to have witnessed that and
absolutely.
to have heard her say those words to you.
Yes.
And you can always keep that in your heart, knowing that's more the truth of who she is than the whole of her human life with you.
Her own past and her own childhood, and that was rarely spoken about. So you wouldn't know. And I know she adored her father. I know she did, and was devastated when he passed many years ago. So it's interesting that here I am and adored my father. Now, I'm from a family of 7, and so my relationship with my dad is different from all the other people's relationship. But I was lucky, like that again, to have afforded that time with him before he got gravely ill to understand who he is and where he has come from. And, the stories he told me about his own childhood, remember his mum passing so young. And so that again is this is where I want to be with people. I want to understand you and why you are who you are. And perhaps with the ability of my sensitivities and soul connection, I can show you a choice that you may have, because it is all about choices. I spent my life feeling I had no choice, feeling squashed. And
when you say no choice in what regard?
Well, no choice in I had to be a certain person. I had to be a certain way. I couldn't speak out.
Oh, yes.
I couldn't do my thing.
Yeah.
One night I was out in a nightclub, right now, I'll give you this. And this person who I vaguely knew, came striding towards. Now we're having a great ale night, few drinks on board, all of that. This person comes over into my face and was verbally attacking me. I was feared that he was going to hit me about, oh, you're that person who does this and talks to that. And people are so afraid of what we do, Anne.
Yeah, there are people that are very frightened about it, yes,
yeah.
They don't understand.
No, and we're not reading anybody's mind. Nobody's mind is read. Honestly, Anne wouldn't like you reading my mind. Yeah. Honestly wouldn't. Connect with my soul, fire away.
Yeah.
So all of those incidences makes it very difficult to maintain your awareness in a positive light. I do know there's a story in the back of my mind, and I mentioned it to Mavis Matilla is a mentor of mine now, and I mentioned it to her, and she said, no, that's not a story I told you. I think it must have been Vi or Doris. And they spoke about this woman in her faith, She was a spiritualist, and she used to go to church, and the husband didn't like it, used to beat her up, and she would still leave and get on a bus and go to her church. And now that's faith. I feel it was being given to me as an example.
Right.
And yeah, another thing, the thing about being of service. Now, again, Irish girl, 4 brothers, 2 sisters. I'm not going to be anybody's servant. How dare they ask me of that? But of course, it's a different service, isn't it? It's not running around cleaning up and all of, although that's also what we could do as well. So to be of service is something I'm very honored to be part of. Just it's an honorable, sacred space of love and compassion. So again, my naivety, I suppose, which I've still maintained, which I really ought to get rid of at my age, but hey, it's still going. That people are to be from a loving, compassionate space. And I do feel people try, but the struggle of trying to fit this in to a life where there can be so much negativity. So you need to adjust perspective. The world doesn't change, but your perspective of it can.
Yes, and it's very interesting how enlightened your soul is, and yet you were born into that place, that country, in this particular decade, that time, with all those challenges that brought to your soul to try to grow through and understand all those challenges that you had.
Yeah. And I do wonder, because I would say sometimes, lads, really, come on, really? You want me to do that? Or what's going to happen next? Because every time you feel you have a foothold on the next part, other parts of your life just come thundering down. So being able to stand within that in your spiritual, soulful space, while the world goes on anyway, it can be difficult. It is a struggle at times. But if you have that faith in spirit world, and here's the other thing that I would kind of share with people, that spirit are not the blame for everything, or they can't be congratulated for everything. You need to be participant in your life instead of hanging out and waiting for spirit to show you the way. Start walking that path and feel it and see. So my faith is very strong now. I can tell you that. Years and years and years of people saying you're mad, and I think we all should maintain a little bit of madness, just so as you know. That could be the Irish in us, Anna.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'm 2nd generation Irish, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know. My mother's from Ireland.
So
you talk about your faith, though. So what do you mean by the word faith? You say, I have my faith. What is that to you?
I have my faith that there is another world when we pass. And it's interesting because I am married a very long time. A very, very long time. For someone so young, I'm married a very long time.
Yes.
But he and I have different opinions. Now, I will tell you that I feel he is a spiritual person, and I know the goodness and kindness that is within him, but we have different opinions. And of course, him being a man thinks he's right. And of course, me being me, say, yeah, we'll see. So he believes there may be nothing when we leave our physical body. And I totally believe there is another world waiting to welcome us home. So I say to him, well, one of us is right, and either way, we're both going to be okay.
Yeah.
But my faith, because I've touched it, I see people from spirit world, I sense it, I feel it, and that does keep me going in those times. Now, I am human, so I will suffer from angst and, well, not wholly depression, but depressive times and emotional times. Because remember, I've brought up in a family that you did not express emotions, you held on to it, you didn't cry, you didn't give in, you didn't let anyone win because you had to be in that space. And now I'm so accepting of other people and their journey, that it's my faith that I know there is goodness in everyone, and I know that there is a beautiful other world that is there supporting me, and I will return home to that when this body of mine decides to give up. Now, during my life, speaking of bodies given up, I've had many illnesses. So I know many mediums and psychics, but mediums specifically have had grave illnesses. I myself have MS, and I also had skin cancer, which is interesting because I'm the one who was telling everyone to put on the sunscreen. So obviously it was from childhood, when should we all be running around getting burnt. And then I had severe issues with a gallbladder, and it went on for years. So eventually I had an operation to try fix it. And from that operation, I had the doctor, not deliberately, of course, nicked my liver. And the liver...
He stole your liver?
He nicked it. Oh, yeah, nicked it with his knife.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, of course. I'm forgetting. He cut, the
Yes,
liver, but in error. And so an abscess grew on it. And I was on holidays in Tenerife, and I was taken to hospital, I think on our second last day, and I nearly died because it was a big, huge abscess on my liver about to burst. So I was septicemia was setting in. So 2 weeks I spent in the hospital over there. And while I was there, I kind of was thinking, I nearly died. Why didn't I get that near-death experience that I'm fascinated by? But the answer came to me, Anne. But you already know. You already know. I felt like my spirit people were around me saying, you already know. There is no need for you to have that a huge experience. And a friend of mine happened to be in Tenerife at the time. She came to visit me, herself and her partner. And she says, there's such a sense of peace in this room. Now I'm really, really ill, remember. And she says, there's such a sense of peace in this room. So I know my spirit people were hanging out with me.
Yeah.
My spirit tribe, my spirit people. So about a year later, a friend of mine, and I won't mention her name, and it's not because I wouldn't, because she's great, wrote a piece that was almost identical to the piece I'd written about my experience of, but you already know, you don't need this. So I got on to her and I said, well, and she says, no, that's what happened to me. I never read that piece. So, and I know she is a medium as well. So isn't it interesting that in those big time of needs, she nearly died also. So, we Irish have a saying, what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. Well, certainly I came out of that stronger.
Yes.
With an absolute belief that I need to push forward. Now, because I was caring for my mum, again, remembering this is a very controlling woman, I couldn't do an awful lot because I had to be there for her willingly because I had chosen it. So now that she has passed, I kind of doing a bit of a life review, saying, gosh, where am I going to go now? And my life, actually, I was thinking, God, my life has been quite small, really. But I mentioned this to you. I did say it to someone, and I say, well, I need to do this thing, but I'm a bit boring. And she said, well, I don't think you're boring. And I went, well, it's all about perspective. And that's us comparing ourselves to others, isn't it?
Yes, exactly, because the fascination is in the everyday, in the struggles that you've had, that people listening to this will be able to relate to so well. They'll be able to relate to elderly parents, sick parents, difficult upbringings, difficult relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
So I know that you caring for your mother and your father, of course, but your mother in recent times, did that take you away from your spiritual path for a while?
It did a bit. It did a bit, because when you're kind of in that negative space of, because sometimes I would be brought right back to my childhood and in that space of fear and this tiny little woman I'm so afraid of. But as time progressed, I was able to accept it more. Again, my husband used to say to me, Susan, there's two things you need to accept. It's your mother and your hair, because there were two things I had big issues with.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so I did. So it did pull me away from all that I had hoped to do and wanted to do, and I was seeing everyone else progressing. So, and you'd see all their posts on Facebook, and I'm going, why am I not able to do this? Now I could have very selfishly just said, right, I'm not minding you anymore, Mum. But then that wouldn't have been me. I wouldn't have been able to live with that. So it did pull on me a bit, and I said, well, there's no point in me doing this. There's no point in me being who I am and working as a medium and a psychic when there's all these other people are doing it. But
what have you learned from that experience then?
Because everyone's different, everyone is unique. Some people do, I was going to say need me, but need someone like me who says it like it is, within that space of soul compassion and kindness. I am a very kind person, and I think everybody is. I think if you give everyone an opportunity to be kind, they will. That feeds into my faith, and it feeds into my knowledge that if I have this capability and ability to assist others, well, then that's my role. And it's not that it doesn't matter what else is going on for me in my life. It's that I can remove myself from that temporarily to assist another. And I'm not the angel of God or anything, by the way. I'm not opening myself that way out.
Yeah, of course.
But I am saying if you find your role, go for it. Until the point where it changes and you need to adapt to it, other things. I'm back working now and I'm trying to up my profile, I suppose, a wee bit.
Yeah.
Because people forget very quickly, don't they? And since my mom passed, it was like I'm free now to choose as an adult independently. Now I do have a partner and kids.
That's a very interesting turn of phrase you've just used there, as an adult, because she had seemingly such a strong effect on you that now you can step into who you truly are in the fullness of who you are.
Yes, that would be correct. Yeah.
Perhaps become the adult she wouldn't let you be, or because she was still so controlling of you through your, I don't know, amateur psychology.
Yeah, I know. It's working well. I have done, and now I was left with many issues, and what I could say, I have a friend who's a hypnotherapist, and she very kindly did a couple of sessions with me, and they're amazing. If anyone would have a look at that for themselves, because it removed the fear from me, that fear that was inbred, that I didn't even know what was feeding it anymore. And so I am less fearful now. And so stronger and more able. Now, whether or not I continue to my deathbed being a medium or psychic is yet to be told. I feel I shall, because I feel it's part of my wholeness and journey on this. My mother now is in spirit world, and so therefore she will be an assistant, a helper for me, because I know that her own inadequacies in lack of being able to express emotion that I know she felt no longer exists. So the purity of my mum can be with me now. That little snippets that I saw before she passed through the dementia. I'm excited now. I feel free. I feel I'm an adult, and I am 56. Don't tell anyone that.
I will tell no one.
Don't tell anyone that. And so isn't it interesting? It's not till the age of 56, and I'm sure many will understand what I'm trying to share, that we, at some point in our life, we come into our own. And it's not until we actually do that we realize that all those other times have only fed this moment. Part of my journey needs to be a teaching aspect, just to share others how they can not benefit as such, but how they can be true to themselves. And of course, my grounding would be in mediumship and psychism. So that's where I would be teaching it, because I feel, and I may be wrong, but the ego that everyone seems to be always banging on about is a requirement in human nature. It's the imbalance of that causes the issue. My hope would be to assist people to maintain balance and take in information like a sponge. Many years ago, like I mentioned Vi before, Vi Kipling said to me, if it's too much information, take only what you need at this moment, because the other information can be accessed at a later date. So too much information is as bad as no information. That's what I feel. So I would feel that moving forward, I would like to access that teaching aspect for me. And I couldn't set up any dates or appointments as such, because I may have to drop them at the last minute.
Well, that's the trouble when you're caring for somebody else, or you're homeschooling your children, as many people have been doing.
Yeah, bless them.
Or not homeschooling and just doing the school run and doing the, taking the kids here, there and everywhere. It's all of these things can take us away from, we feel are taking us away from.
There's the other thinking that, well, God never gives you a bigger cross than you can carry. Yeah, but really? Did I need to know
he does.
that? Yeah, really?
I think he piles about 5 million on top of you, and then another 5 million.
And everything's a lesson. And I'm going, really? Come on.
Yeah, I know. So you get sick of all life's lessons.
Yeah.
Enough learning.
I think I've had enough. I think I've had enough of those lessons. I want other kind, good, wonderful, inspiring lessons, but I've had enough of those ones.
Exactly. So tell us, Susan, you've spoke a lot through this episode about the SNU and your qualification as a CSNU. Can you explain to some of the listeners who may not understand what that is? What is the SNU? What are these qualifications? What is the difference between the SNU and ordinary spirituality?
The difference is that one is a certificate to say you can do this. That's what it is. The SNU, the Spiritualist National Union, which is British-based, and remember, I'm Irish, so there's not much SNU stuff within the Republic of Ireland, and I think there's only one in Northern Ireland, but it's prolific throughout Britain, Scotland, Wales, and England, and it is a spiritualist movement. Now, the CSNU I have is a certificate, which means I have achieved a certain standard within my mediumship and my speaking. Now, I will say many years ago, there's not a hope I would have stood up in front of 2 people, never mind 200 people. Not a hope, because there was this shyness within me. There was this, I'm not good enough anyway to do it. The Irish upbringing, I'm not good enough for that anyway. But now I love inspirational speaking, because it's about inspiring or igniting that soul to open up to the quality of what the potential of your life can be. So I love doing that. So, never say never.
People may not understand what inspirational speaking is or where you might do it.
It is when in a service, a spiritual service, which is some prayer, the inspirational talk, which is a talk from the soul space to the congregation, just positivity and life challenges, which may inspire them to keep going, not give up on hope. So the certificate just means that, I can contact people and say, look, I am a CSNU, because they wouldn't know me from Adam. And like I said, there's very little going on within the Republic. There's lots of training and stuff like that, but very little services and places where people can gather, which is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. And I think it has to be acknowledged that attaining a CSNU with the SNU is a very high level of qualification. There's a lot of work behind
There
that.
is
It doesn't
a
come easy.
work. Yeah, so it is a wonderful achievement. It is quite difficult to achieve. And again, like here in Ireland, so I would have happened to travel to Britain to do all that. But it is wonderful because it does give me access when I can get to that space where I can access other things and churches and such like. So the SNU do offer excellent educational studies. So if you are interested, not that I'm selling it for them, but if you were interested, it is worth your while looking up their website and see what they have to offer.
And there's the Spiritualist National Union International for those that don't live in the UK.
That's correct, which is online. Yeah.
Online training, and they offer some incredible courses and accreditations.
Absolutely. And now the thing about online, people kind of worry that it's not the same, and I can guarantee you it is, because that's where I started my first training. Proper spiritual training was online. I know from that energy, once permission is offered, you can be anywhere in the world and we can do that soul connection.
So a couple of things I still want to ask you.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier on that you were terrified when you first experienced the energy of a guide. Can you explain what happened, why you were frightened, and why you're no longer frightened?
I can, because I had never experienced it before. And knowledge dispels fear, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So I'm sitting online in the other room. I remember it because I can still see the guide. I can still see how he appeared to me and his name. I'm sitting there and I'm in a class where you have to connect with guides and stuff like that. And then this overwhelming power hit me. If you can imagine it like an ocean wave, huge, hitting you. And it took my breath away. And
how old were you, Susan?
I would have been, well, I'm not young in this, so I would be maybe in my late 30s.
And how much training had you done at the time? Were you aware of other energies?
So I discovered it when I found this online site, Delphi, that there's more. There's more. This is it. So I actually felt, oh, wow, this is it. This may be what I've been looking for. This may be an answer to that gnawing sense of I need more.
So hold on, go back.
Yeah.
You're sitting on your chair.
Yes.
And what happened?
We were within this class space online. We were to go into a meditation or a guided thing. We were to meet our guides.
Yeah.
And I saw this large gentleman, and he was in like +4s, is that what they call them?
Yes.
An English gentleman, tweedy suit. His name is Gideon. And the power hit me like that ocean wave. And I got terribly frightened because I didn't understand it. Took my breath away.
Yeah.
So I actually exited. I thought I had touched on something that I shouldn't have. That kind of way.
All right.
It's like, did I stick my finger in that electric socket?
Right.
And maybe I shouldn't have. So the next day I went back in and I was again speaking to someone about the experience, and they were saying, don't worry about that. Try it again. And I did. So because I was expecting that surge of energy, that change of energy, I was more willing and accepting to have that conversation, which then became an exciting thing for me.
How did it feel the second time?
It felt peaceful. It felt exciting. What are you going to share with me? What are you going to tell me? Give me that information.
Yeah, that's more the feeling I get when guides come close. It's that excitement. It's that beautiful, loving feeling and the kind of fizzing and bubbling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fizzing and bubbling. That's a great description. I love that.
I was just interested to see what that was like. You also mentioned a spiritual naming ceremony with Eric Hatton, but I don't know. Spiritual naming ceremony seems to be self-explanatory, but I don't think I really know what it is. So could you explain? Somebody gave you a spiritual name. I've not heard of that before.
It's a spiritualist thing. And in this instance, it was Eric Hatton. And so they sit with their spirit guides and they receive a name for the person they're doing the ceremony for, because that is the name that they are, or the quality or whatever that they're known in spirit world.
Ah, I see.
So listen, because this is a bit funny and a bit strange, because welcome to my life. Nothing is ever straightforward. So my given name was Diadem, Diadem.
Uh-huh.
And so the person next to me got Mary, Pearl, Rose. So we're all sitting there and going, Diadem, what is that? So Vi and Doris went home that night and they researched it, and they came back and is a princess's crown, a princess crown. So they brought back in a little child's tiara and a little child's wand, and they had a little card written out. So my name is Diadem now, which is princess, which is very interesting, because I'm not saying I'm a princess, by the way, but it was interesting because on that online site that I spoke to you about, a couple of friends called me princess. I would call them empress or queen. We had these nicknames, and mine was princess. So isn't that interesting?
Wow, that is interesting. He knew nothing about that, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, because it was years before. So it's very interesting that now, again, I'm not, ego, princess, all of that, but it is nice to know. And I am a Leo as well. So this is the royalty side of us, us Leos, the regal side. But it is nice to know that someone of stature can assist. And again, I'm not talking about me, but people can look up to people. When I discovered that, and of course I'm generally a humble person anyway, and shy and very hesitant about coming forward, but I thought the ceremony was absolutely beautiful, because it gives you an inspirational inkling of how spirit world perceives you and where you would need to push forward. So yeah, it is lovely. It is a lovely thing. And so I'm very proud of that. And like I said, I had no clue who Eric Hatton was, other than he is this beautiful man with his lovely, lovely wife. I think he embodied what I now know a spiritualist person needs to be. Ought to be. Yeah.
Lovely. Very nice.
It is nice. Look into it. Yeah, do look into it.
I will. I shall just have a little nose on the internet about that and make some inquiries to people. That's very interesting. I wonder what my spiritual name is.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely. So you're back. Your mother, may I just say, please accept my condolences. I'm so very sorry that she's passed, and I know that there must be times that it's difficult for you still.
It is, but she is 88.
Yeah.
So she's lived a long life, much longer than any member of her family. And she had been rather ill for the previous months before passing. So I'm pleased for her.
Yes, the great release. Must be lovely.
Exactly.
So you're back now. So you're now stepping into your power.
Back.
Susan Hughes, here she is. She's ready to go. She's a spiritual medium living in Dublin, Ireland. What are you offering to people? Where can they find you? What's on the cards for the next little while?
Well, they can find me online. On Facebook, I'm Susan Hughes, Spiritual Medium. Website, www.susanhughesmedium.com. And they'll find all details how to contact me on my Facebook page or website. I like organizing. This is where part of the controlling aspect of my life comes to the fore, because to be a good organizer, you need to be a bit of a controller. So I loved organizing things, because even though I couldn't invest my whole time personally to teach and to do shows, I suppose people like to call them, I like inviting those who I absolutely respect and know that have a fund of knowledge to share with others. So the likes of Mavis Patilla, Tony Stockwell, who I know that you know well,
Yes.
And Lynn came over to me once before as well. Lynn Probert,
Lynn Probert, yeah.
this is what I was able to do while I couldn't do all that I needed and wanted to do. So that kind of kept my finger in the pie. But again, like I said, as a bit of a controller, I liked being in control of that. So Tony does come over to me. This is about the fifth year, but we were due to go to Kinsale in County Cork. And of course, with the coronavirus, we decided, for health and safety reasons, shouldn't be doing it in person. So it's moved to online. But again, on my Facebook page or website, those details are there. So I'm easy to connect with. I'm easy to contact. And I do mediumship readings, soul connections, psychics. I tell you what I do. Whatever is needed on the day, that's what I'm drawn to do. So people may come to me wanting one particular thing, and my spirit team are showing me that this needs to be looked at or reviewed. And I like that. Nothing is ever the same. So I like it. I like it a lot.
So Tony Stockwell and Mavis Patilla, are they on the cards to come soon? And do you have plans to invite Lynn Probert back again?
I think Lynn is extremely busy, but I love that woman. So if she wished to come to Ireland, I'd definitely be delighted to host her.
I know, Tony, she's amazing.
Absolutely fantastic.
We love Lynn.
Yeah. Tony and Mavis were due to come this year to me, but again, the virus has prevented that. Now I will have new dates from Mavis and Jean for next year, but Tony is where we've moved the course from Kinsale to Zoom online. So that's being advertised as we speak.
When is that?
That is September 11th to the 13th. So it's Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And it is 2 p.m. till 8 p.m. Irish time. I have also put on the time zones for other people. So it means that it can be accessed internationally, which is great because Tony is just a brilliant teacher. I love him because he always has new stuff.
Yeah.
He just is very inspiring in his teaching.
Yes, he is very much so. Susan, what are you offering yourself personally?
Well, I would offer psychic readings, mediumship readings, and I actually mix them both. So it would be a psychic and a mediumship within the one session, depending on the needs of the client. Also, because I'm doing my official teacher training, I'm also running online teaching courses, beginners to intermediate and advanced.
Wonderful.
So I'm in the middle of them. So I will announce when the next run is going to start, again, on my Facebook page and website.
Wonderful. Well, Susan, I wish you all the very best now that you're back. You're standing in your power. The way forward is clear.
I don't know if it's clear, but the way forward is there, shall we say.
The way forward is there. Yeah. And take it gently. We all have to take it gently, don't we? How we go forward in the world.
Yes, we do.
So I wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Anne. It was really nice to chat with you as well.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Susan Hughes is based in Dublin in the Republic of Ireland and is also, like the rest of us, currently working online. So do contact her if you wish to study with her or have a private reading. And when the world kicks off again and we're all able to travel, really do consider joining Susan and one of her amazing guest tutors over in Kinsale in Ireland. Not only do you get to see the beauty of Ireland and experience the wonderful warmth of the people there, but you also get to experience the incredible tuition of Susan and those world-renowned mediums that she invites to teach alongside her. All the links and resources mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes, plus a full transcription, and those are over on my website, www.anntheato.com, so head there and you can pick everything up. If you're finding the world a little bit too much at the moment, why not try a meditation? I have 3 for sale on my website at just £3 each. 15 or 30 minutes of perfect peace and bliss. Forest bathing, soul sanctuary, or sitting in the power. Allow my voice to take you deep into your subconscious mind. Alternatively, please do consider booking a time travel reading with me. These are unique readings. Nobody else is offering them. They are very unique to me and the work that I'm currently doing, where I talk you down into a deep state of hypnosis and we travel together to the spirit realm, where you can meet your loved ones again, talk to them and hold them in a 3-dimensional encounter. These readings take 90 minutes and you can find details on my website for these very special reunions with those you love. That's all for this week. Thank you very much for being an amazing listener. I really appreciate you tuning in. Have a fantastic couple of weeks, everyone. And until next time, my name is Ann Théato and thank you for listening to Psychic Matters.